Hello everyone, Ken and Loa here, and it has been quite a bit since I have done anything Path of Exile related. So, for Harvest League, supposedly the league that could potentially break Path of Exile as we know it, according to Chris Wilson before Harvest League started, I haven't really done much of anything, to be honest. And it's mostly down to how the harvest mechanic works, is that in order to get the highest level crafts, let's just go to the Sacred Grove here to kind of show it, you need a lot of setup in order to do like the tier 2, 3, and 4 seeds. In order to optimize it, you need your garden set up in a certain way. So because of that, me and Warmonger kind of decided that Warmonger would be the one to fully optimize his garden to do all the crafting, because in the league prior to this one, he primarily did most of the crafting for the both of us, and that seemed to work out well enough. So basically I got to the point where I was starting to get into maps, but then I didn't either have enough survivability with my characters or enough damage to really go much higher than I did, or I wasn't super interested in going further than I did. And that was with two characters that I had at the beginning of the league, which was a cobra lash pathfinder, which works okay enough, and then a tectonic slam chieftain, which was pretty much the meta at the start of the league anyway. And that was a lot of fun, but he wasn't really fast enough or tanky enough for my liking. So definitely there was that to consider. So near the end of the league, I decided to kind of test run, in a sense, a build that I made all focused around Doryani's prototype. And it's really ironic that I did that, because a few weeks later, just like yesterday or today, Mathil decided to make a build around Doryani's prototype as well. So I probably got the 6 link, Warmonger got the 6 link for me before the price probably jumped up in Exalt just because of Mathil's video. But anyway, I decided to make a Scion, which this is pretty much the first time that I ever made a Scion above level 30. And I have to say, I am very impressed on how well it turned out. So I am using Divine Ire here. So with a channeling skill, most of the time clear speed with channeling skills, well, besides Cyclone obviously, the clear speed isn't super amazing, because you have to stand still in order to charge your attack, and then you have to release it. So unless you have super crazy high cast speed with channeling skills, or attack speed I think with like charge dash and stuff, it's really hard to make it feel smooth. But with the items that Warmonger just recently crafted me, with the harvest mechanic, so obviously it is much easier to get these items with this league than it did previously. So I'm getting like unnerved gloves right here, and then tailwind boots and whatnot, and then I'm using Brine King for the mana regen and armor while stationary, as well as the reduced cold damage taken and cannot be frozen is kind of a nice quality of life attribute. And then of course now Doryani's prototype, which is an item that makes it so that nearby enemies have equal lightning resistance to yours. So the whole idea is to make your lightning resistance as low as possible, because your armor mitigates lightning damage instead, which also means that you need decently high armor in order to not get instantly obliterated by anything that deals the slightest hint of lightning damage. So that's why I decided to use Brian King really helps with that. And then Doryani's prototype has at least a decent amount of armor in and of itself. And then a belt that adds to armor and strength. I would have liked a crystal belt personally, but this is what Warmonger was able to do in short notice. So it's pretty good in and of itself. And then a critical strike chance ring with lightning damage to power per power charge. +1 level of lightning gems amulet, and then only the staff and the second ring here isn't crafted to any sort of good amount. So yeah, this has definitely been a contender for one of the funnest builds that I've played, and that is really something, considering that, again, this is a channeling skill. So most of the time, that means the clear speed isn't going to be super amazing, even if you do super high damage. So let's just do a desert map here. I have one with quality, apparently. Most of the maps that I got those from Warmonger, because of course he had all of these maps from when he was going through his atlas. And so, luckily enough for me, I was able to do this. So, not exactly the best mods for physical damage as extra lightning, can be dangerous depending on certain things. But let's give it a shot. So for defenses like molten shell and stuff, so, and then curse on hit, stormbrand. So this is pretty much the best build that I have come up with out of this league. I've only been playing it for like 2 weeks at the very most. So with the Scion character in and of itself, I kind of don't like how Scions are set up, primarily with their ascendancies, because you have to wait until every other labyrinth in order to get an ascendancy bonus, essentially, because the Scion works as combining two lesser versions of ascendancies instead of just having one. And honestly, an Inquisitor would probably be doing just as well, if not better, than this. But I wanted to try something different, because, like I said, I never really played Scion much, if at all, before now. But I think it worked out with having both the Inquisitor ascendancy as well as the Assassin for the power charges and elusive. Works quite well. But as soon as Warmonger gets the better staff and better ring, I'm probably going to do a build guide on this. So if you like what you see here, stay tuned. But yeah, like as soon as you get like 10 charges, you can pretty much one-shot normal mobs, or at least with these low tiers. I'm only level 80 right now, so that's why I'm not doing super tier 16 juiced maps and whatever yet, so this may not be like a super great representation of how it would be in tier 16, but at the same time I am pretty confident that it would do well on those high tier maps because of how well it's doing here. And Doryani's prototype has very unique things that you don't really need to deal with compared to other builds. Like for an example, if I was a normal Divine Ire build with the mod enemies have plus 30% elemental resist, that would significantly reduce the damage of a normal Divine Ire build unless you have a lot of elemental penetration. But with Doryani's prototype, it doesn't care about that mod at all because it sets the lightning resistance that they have to yours. And that is really convenient, actually, because it makes it so that when you're fighting bosses and they normally have 50% elemental resist or whatever that they have, it doesn't matter because it just strips all of that away if you have low elemental resist. Well, was that it? Pretty much. But yeah, like I said, definitely a contender for my favorite build of this league, but considering that I haven't really been playing much throughout this league until now, that isn't really saying a whole lot, probably. With my flasks up, I have supposedly 85% physical damage reduction, which is good enough to be able to kind of face tank a lot of stuff. I mean, besides the super hard hitting boss slams, you can't really tank those. But for normal attacks from mobs and stuff, lightning damage isn't really a concern of mine. So that kind of downside isn't really much of a downside at this point. And then here's just showing the two ascendancies there. So definitely something that I really liked how it worked out.
Hello. See you, survivor.
Just put these back in here. And the other thing too is that my DPS on tooltip anyway, if I have my buffs up, is over 100,000. Now granted, again, I'm using quite juiced up gear because of harvest, but this has been, quite frankly, the only character that I've ever played so far that has been able to keep up with the monster level. Now what I mean by that is that usually when I play a new league, the character becomes much higher level than the actual monster level. For an example, by the time I get to tier 5 maps, which are like level 72, 73 areas, I might be level 80 to 82-ish. And then by the time I get to tier 10, which is level 78, I do believe, I'm probably going to be like high 80s. But this character has had enough damage and enough tankiness to keep up with that. So when I was level 75, I was doing level 74 or 75 level maps, and it has been just such an invigoration of getting back into the game. And it has been very enjoyable to play a character like this. And I've been just so shocked on how good the clear speed is with the channeling skill. Like, this has better clear speed by far. Again, granted, I have tailwind and elusive and stuff like that from the boots and my assassin part ascendancy, but the clear speed is just amazing to me. So for the most part, Harvest League I really haven't done much with it. I pretty much stopped playing for over a month, probably a month and a half. Again, because I was going to have Warmonger set up his garden to be as optimal as possible, and then I just didn't do anything, and Warmonger was having some difficulty crafting his own stuff as well as the specific stuff I wanted earlier. So then that didn't get me into the game earlier. But definitely with this character, this has been a joy to play. Now this was going to be my league starter for next league, but since I'm playing it now and I'm playing with better gear than I'm probably going to get next league realistically, honestly, I think this might be a character that I would possibly even play in standard. It's just that much of a joy to play, and I just need to level her up above level 80, get to 85, 90 to get into a few things like Divine Wrath, converting elemental spells to 25% physical damage to lightning damage. Because currently, because of Doryani's prototype, I am technically only doing half my damage because I have no other way other than the Divine Ire itself of converting that lightning damage, and that is only 50%. So the clear speed and damage that I'm getting out, it's halved technically, and I don't even have a level 21 gem either. This is a level 19 gem that we got for I think like 20 chaos, because a level 21 23 quality Divine Ire for some reason was like 3 exalts, but it's just it's just so astonishing to me. So with that, more focusing on Harvest itself, the gameplay mechanic of it, of the idea of crafting your own gear, much easier, especially if you know the ins and outs of it, in comparison to the usual setup, usual crafting options, was really good. But I think the reason why Harvest League has kind of dropped off, both for me, and it seemed like the Path of Exile community kind of dropped off at a certain point with it as well, for the non-hardcore players, was that overall it's whenever you get the seeds, especially if you are trying to plant them every time that you get those seeds, it's really a big pace breaker, because you have to, like, you're going super fast, you're killing all the monsters and just sprinting through the map, and then you have to slow down, get the seeds, and then think about where you're going to place them, and even though that they do have the auto plant option, like let's say if I filled up like the closest ones, then or if I wanted to sort any of the types of seeds, then I would either have to store them or think about where exactly I would place them. And while leveling that, yeah, like I said, that was just definitely a really big pace breaker for me. And killing the monsters too, I kind of feel like killing the monsters from the seeds just wasn't really a necessary addition, because you're just crafting stuff. Like, if you have mediocre gear and then you have to kill hard monsters, because harvest creatures are actually a decent amount harder than the normal monsters, in order to craft better gear, I kind of feel like that's counterintuitive. In the sense of, I have crappy gear and I want to improve it, but I may not be powerful enough to kill the monsters in order for me to get the crafts to get the better stuff to make my character better. It just kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then both the blue and the yellow monsters as well have death effects, which is just simply mind-numbingly bad design. Why would you on death effects on crafting monsters? That just... what? Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I mean, I am not a fan of on-death effects in general in Path of Exile, especially since they keep seemingly pushing them every league to be more and more prevalent. But when I kill the monsters, like, I'm gonna be ready to see what crafts I got and what I'm gonna put on them, but no, you have to wait like 5 seconds or longer to wait out the on-death effects in order to finally see what you have, and that's just incredibly dumb in my opinion. But yeah, with that, that was what I have been up to in Harvest League. So I haven't really been doing a lot. Nothing super special, but in the last 2 weeks with this character, it has definitely been some of the most fun that I've had playing Path of Exile in quite a while. And if you are interested in a Doryani's prototype build that isn't meta in the sense, stay tuned for a build guide for this character, and I'll be doing that hopefully before the next league starts. So with all of that, Doryani's prototype in general, I've seen both Mathil and one other person who makes powerful builds. They were using Melnirs with Doryani's prototype, with like arcs in the Melnirs and stuff, and doing like a crazy cast on crit cyclone setup, and honestly their builds are probably better than mine. But the thing is that I wanted to do something different than cyclone. I really don't like the idea of doing cyclone like every league or every other league, and I try to do my own thing that I have never done before and see if it works out. And this was definitely a build that I hadn't seen anyone doing, and it just turned out to be immense fun. So with that, that is what I got for Harvest League. So if this character is the only thing good to come out of it for myself, that's good enough for me. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.